This video is all about adding and subtracting rational numbers, so integers, fractions, decimals, and especially those negatives. I know you can do this on your calculator, but I want to make sure you understand how to solve it without a calculator also. So anytime you see a minus, you're going to think of that as just adding a negative. For instance, 18 minus 10, that is equal to 18 plus negative 10. And so those are saying the same thing. 18 minus 10 or 18 plus negative 10 is positive 8. If you see minus and negative, 10 minus negative 4, you're going to say bam, bam, make that plus a positive. 10 plus positive 4 is 14. So anytime you see two negatives in a row, subtracting a negative is the same as adding a positive, and so you're going to change that. Is the answer positive or negative? You see here in our examples, we have a positive plus a positive. Like 8 plus 10 gives me 18. Of course, anytime you take two positives, just like the math you learned to do in elementary school, the answer is going to be positive. If you have a negative plus a negative, this is like borrowing $9 and borrowing another $7. You're still in the borrowing range, so it's of course going to be negative. You're still in the red, they say. Okay, so a negative plus a negative is always negative. And if it's mixed, negative 8 plus 5, it's going to be negative 3. 9 minus 3 is like 9 plus negative 3. And that is positive 6. So if the answer is positive or negative, depends on which number has a bigger absolute value. Here, 8 is negative, and it's bigger than 5, so your answer is negative. Here, the 9 is positive, it's bigger in absolute value than the 3, and since the 9 is positive, then the 6 is positive. So it keeps the sign, the answer has the sign of bigger absolute value number. And I'm just going to write sign of bigger number. And you'll know if it's positive or negative, all right? So negative 8 was bigger, it's negative. 9 was bigger, it's positive. You can sometimes think of positive and negative with chips. Red are negative and yellow are positive. If you take negative 3 and you add 5 to it, so we're ignoring these for a minute, a positive 1 and a negative 1 cancel out. So those are gone. Here's another match. Here's another one that cancels out. You're left with positive 2. So we'll think about the rule we just learned. 5 is bigger than 3. 5 is positive. Your answer is positive. You'll also notice that 5 minus 3 is 2. And so even though we were adding, really, we subtracted to get the 2. So when you have different signs, like a negative and a positive, you really just take the difference. You really just subtract. Okay, here, this one is, we'll use all of them. Negative 6, positive 5, so negative 6 plus 5. You might think, okay, same thing. Match them up, cancel them out. Positive 1 and negative 1 cancels out. This is a negative 1 that's left. Again, 6 minus 5 is 1, but 6 was negative, and it's bigger than this positive 5, so your answer is negative. So just a slide here to help you remember my sayings. I already mentioned the bottom one. Different sign, you take the difference, you subtract. If it's the same sign, you take the sum. So -8 plus -11, you add those together, you get -19. Different sign, you take the difference. -3 plus 10. Okay, different sign because of a negative and a positive. So really we're going to say 7. 10 was positive, so it's a positive 7. Here we have fractions. Anytime you have fractions, you've got to have those like bases, or like denominators, not like bases. 1 plus 8 is 9. Your denominator stays the same. This can't be reduced, so you can leave it just like that. Okay, 2 minus 8 gives me -6 over 9, but that can be reduced. Divide by 3. Whoops, divide by 3. So that gives me 2 and 3. -2/3 is my answer. When I have fractions with unlike bases, I write it like this, up and down, and then I go ahead and figure out what my common denominator would be. The smallest number that 5 and 10 go into, which happens to be 10. So I had to do 5 times 2 to get 10. So 4 times 2 gives me 8. And 7/10 just stays 7/10. I add those, I only add the numerators. 8 plus 7 gives me 15. The denominator stays 10. I've got to reduce it. I'm going to divide by 5 and get 3 over 2. Of course, you can do all of this on your calculator using that ABC button. You'll hear me sometimes say just ABC it. You just make fractions and mixed numbers using this key. You can go ahead and try that out and figure out how it works. I believe you can do it. Anytime you're adding and subtracting numbers, I always recommend picturing them on a number line, especially when it involves positive and negative. And so just a little hint when you're working with decimals, picture that number line. Remember your rules, same sign, sum, different sign, take the difference. And then whenever you're adding and subtracting, you've got to line up those decimals. Using those tips, we're going to picture a number line. If I have 6 and 8/10, it's about here. If I go up 14, it's going to put me at about 20. So that's what we're looking for. We're going to line up our decimals. So that means this bottom one's going to have some more numbers. We've got to put a 0 in as a placeholder. We're going to just add down. 6 and 4 gives me 10, so I'm going to have to carry that 1. So we have 20 and 85 hundredths. Go ahead and try these on your own. Good luck. Oh, and try them on your own without a calculator. Good luck.